So my name's Joseph Pavey, and I'm a second-year student in the MCDM, and the name of my presentation is Youth Advocacy in Digital Media in Cameroon, West Africa. So this last summer, through the MCDM, or through an opportunity I found out about through the MCDM, I was invited to go to Cameroon and spend 10 weeks as a technology advisor for Plan International on their YATEM project. YATEM stands for Youth Empowerment Through Technology, Arts, and Media. And it's a project that works with youth in rural communities in several different countries in Africa to teach them to become better advocates for positive change and development in their communities through the use of ICTs and traditional arts like drawing and painting and theater. A little bit about the area that I was stationed in. It was called Ndop. Was the region. It's in the Ndop was the area. It's in the northwest region of Cameroon, and then I was in the village of Bamasing. This was the main road into town, so as you can see, it was quite rural. The primary business was agriculture, mostly rice and potato farming, and the technology infrastructure was quite low. Not a lot of computers, not a lot of PCs, but there were a lot of mobile phones. So the YATEM project grew out of the first youth that were invited into the YATEM project in the area that I was stationed in were from the local high school's journalism club. So one of the ways in which the youth first kind of thought of to participate using ICT for development was through blogging. And so this is just an example of a WordPress post that one of the youth named Seraphine did about the school dropout rate in the village of Babanki. The youth also used still cameras and video cameras to document a lot of the work that they were doing. This particular image was taken during a youth-led action to clean the marketplace that was part of a larger overall campaign to raise awareness about cleaning your area to keep the number of cases of malaria down, so cleaning brush and standing water and things like that. And the youth cleaned the marketplace and then went down to the marketplace the next day and talked to individuals about, how it all fits together, that if you don't clean your area, it attracts mosquitoes, the mosquitoes carry malaria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, as I said, they did documentation of all this work that they were doing. So one of the big interests that I have is digital maps. So there's a digital mapping component to this project that I want to talk to you a little about, talk about a little bit more in depth. Who in the room is familiar with OpenStreetMaps? Anyone? Okay, couple folks. So OpenStreetMaps is an alternative to digital maps. An alternative to Google Maps. It's an open source project that allows people to collect data on GPS devices, certain tracks for roads or certain landmarks, and then add those to a collaborative map online that people can share and add data to. And I think it's especially relevant for cases of development because a lot of these places are not mapped digitally online, right? So this example here is how the area of Ndop is represented on Google Maps. That's about as close of data as you can get is the road going off to the east from the nearest town, Bamenda. And there's nothing more than that little dot there that says it exists. So when Plan was considering ways in which they could have the youth first start thinking about what development projects their environment needed, they thought, well, we could have them do a digital mapping project. And so the first portion of that was to kind of evaluate the environment, right? To look at existing, paper maps and show how their area was represented, and then go out into the field and kind of look around and see what was there and what they saw that wasn't being represented, right? Then they created their own paper map, first on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and then on larger, like butcher-sized pieces of paper, right? And then they put those pieces of paper up in the front of the room and proceeded to examine the details of it. We left an hour and a half for this particular exercise when we performed it, and it ended up taking about 6 hours because they wanted to go into extreme depth on everything from how much of the agricultural area should be represented versus how much of the social infrastructure should be represented, and things that I wouldn't have thought of, right? Like they have a traditional local leader called the Fawn, and there was a lengthy discussion about whether his second home should be listed as a government building or a residential building. So these are the sorts of things that, you know, outsiders creating maps would never think to consider, that, you know, people who are in the culture, you know, really kind of get excited about talking about. So then we taught them to use GPS devices. We did GPS training with them, you know, then they went out and actually captured data. And so, it's a little blown out, but this is what NDOP looks like on OpenStreetMaps now. And now most of this data was actually collected before I was involved in the project. But I helped work with a second group of youth that are going to be adding more to this map, and that are going out and collecting data that works with this map. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. But as you can see, it's much more detailed than the map that exists on Google Maps. But it wasn't, to tie this back to the development aspect of things, it wasn't just about capturing information about roads and specific points. It was also about capturing data. OpenStreetMaps has an option to have a data layer on top of the map. And so after the initial data had been collected, the youth, the initial like road and waypoint data had been collected, the youth went out and they collected information about certain sites that they documented, right? They went out and collected information about the schools, how many boys attended the school, how many girls attended the school, how many teachers were there at the school, you know, did it have a pit toilet or a flush toilet? I think they all had pit toilets, but you know, the total number of benches, things like that. And then also for health centers, you know, how many doctors did the health center have? How many nurses did the health center have? Did the health center have doctors at all? In some cases they didn't. You know, what were the cases that had come in the last year? Was, you know, lots of cases of AIDS, lots of cases of HIV, lots of cases of malaria, things like that. And kind of documenting all that, and then, you know, being able, and this gives them a sort of informal census to then point to later when they're advocating for development projects in their own communities. So once again, just a little bit of an example, a difference between what and how NDOP is represented on Google Maps versus how it's represented on OpenStreetMaps. And one other thing that this map allowed us to do is it allowed us to be able to create a reporting system using Frontline SMS and CrowdMap, so that the youth could report incidents of violence in their community using SMS text messaging. And Frontline SMS and CrowdMap are two open source tools, one for aggregating SMS messages from phones and then via a PC, and then and then CrowdMap is by the creators of Ushahidi, that allows people to create systems for putting that, then adding that data to a map and kind of contextualizing it. And the idea with this being that the youth can, that the youth can report incidents, and then plan can work with the government to facilitate response, and also it allows them to have a better picture as to where certain sensitization campaigns need to happen, because if you know, if physical violence is much more prevalent than, say, sexual violence in a specific community, that tells them something about maybe where they should put most of their effort in educating the community, if that makes sense. So one final slide, I guess. I just want to, you know, we talk a lot about technology, but it's really all about people and the capacity that individuals bring. And the youth that I worked with had a lot of challenges, you know, along the way, but they really persevered and pushed forward on all of these projects that they were working on, and they never got discouraged. And it was really exciting for me to see, and you know, made me feel bad when I complain about things back home. So thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Mm-hmm.